lampreys, and then we can start looking at fish. So lampreys are, at least from the exterior, look a lot like hagfish, but they're a lot more complex. They're actually a true vertebrate, right? So we're now in this subphylum Vertebrata out of our phylum Craniata. And here's our class. So it's Hyperoardia, all right? So Hyperoardia means one long nasal cavity, or a solid or complete nasal cavity. These guys, again, are cyclostomes or have round mouths, so no movable jaw. They, as you've already done the dissection, have pretty scary teeth, right? Inside of the mouth, and they're actually got teeth on the tongue. And that allows them to rasp or grab onto the surface of an animal, suction onto a surface, and then the tongue can rasp open a wound, and then they can feed on blood and body fluids. And so they're called sanguinivores, which means blood eaters. So, or hematophagy means, hemo means blood, phagy means to eat. And so they are body fluid eaters. So interestingly, their saliva is very complex and highly adapted to this lifestyle. They have anticoagulants in the saliva that are responsible for keeping the blood kind of flowing and prevents coagulation or blood clotting. And the main one is seprin here, which is an anticoagulant that I believe they were trying to at least synthetically make, because it's a pretty good blood clotting inhibitor, which can help people who, for example, have heart attacks. This anticoagulant blocks this clotting factor, which is 10. 10 is what activates the actual clotting process. And so there are like 20 or more clotting factors. So number 10 is one of the main unifying clotting factors that causes blood clotting in most vertebrates. So they can be fresh or marine. This one here is the marine lamprey. It's the one you dissected. It's big, right? But to give you an idea, there are 7 species of lampreys in Indiana. 6 of them are native, and this one is not. And not all lampreys are parasitic. So of the 7, 4 are parasitic and 3 are not. And so I'll kind of talk about the differences in their lifestyle when we get to their life history, kind of reproductive strategies. So these guys have a notochord still, but you now surround the notochord with blocks of cartilage that are primitive or ancestral or remnants of what we're going to call true vertebrae eventually. And I'll show you that in the skeleton. They also have a vestibule with 2 semicircular ducts, not 1, like the hagfish. They lack scales. That is, they have a smooth skin, as you guys have probably noticed. They do produce mucus, but nothing like the hagfish as far as the amount of mucus. And obviously they are, at least the marine lamprey, is parasitic. So here's the skeleton. It's a great dissection feature. I used to have one back at my old university, but I left it when I left. They're really hard to get a hold of now. But this shows you just the skeleton intact. Obviously, we got a round mouth up here, and really the only hard part of their entire skeleton are the teeth, right? Which have enamel and dentin in them, like normal teeth, but no true bone, right? No true bone. They have a cartilaginous basket that holds all of their gills, right? And those gills will empty out of gill pores or branchial pores. So this is called the branchial basket, branchial meaning gills, and will be filled with gill filaments. And you can see the basket, it actually looks like a woven basket, and it's all made of cartilage, which you can crush with muscle, right? A muscular pump, and force the water out. And when the muscles relax, that cartilage rebounds back to its original shape, which would be this shape, which would increase volume and suck new water into this basket so that they can actually respire using their muscular pumps. As you follow the notochord down, you can then start to see at this point you got free notochord, and then you got blocks of cartilage that are now surrounding the notochord. So those are your cartilage blocks, and then there is a dorsal hollow nerve cord. Got a postanal fin here, and then a dorsal fin that runs kind of almost a third of the length of the body. So they show all 5 chordate characters as adults and as larvae. This shows you a lamprey suction to the side of an aquaria glass, showing you all those teeth and the mouth, and there's obviously teeth on the tongue. And here's the kind of wound that is left on a fish that had a lamprey on it. They typically will suck the fish dry. They are really vampires of the fish world, and mortality rate is really high, particularly with the marine species. So this right here is the life cycle of the marine lamprey in the Great Lakes. So the marine lamprey is an invasive species. It was brought in by large ocean-going ships. I don't know if you know that or not, but most of the Great Lakes are connected to each other and to large rivers that can leave the area to the ocean. And when ocean liners used to come into the Great Lakes, they would dump their ballast, or the water, the marine water that was in the ship that was collected when they were out to sea. And in that water were Ammocetes larvae, right? And they were dumped into the Great Lake system. These guys can survive fresh or salt water. And they got a hold of, enough of them survived that they actually could start reproducing. And now they use the lakes, the Great Lakes, as kind of their ocean, if you will, where the adults live. And they will then leave the Great Lakes and go up freshwater streams and rivers that feed into the Great Lakes to actually to lay their eggs and build nests. And the parents build a kind of a rock bottom nest. They clear out an area. The female drops the eggs. The male fertilizes them, and then the eggs will develop in the gravel of a stream, and then hatch into Ammocetes larvae. And then they have kind of a similar lifestyle to that of Amphioxus. They are filter feeders, the Ammocetes larvae. They dig into the sediment of the stream, hide from predators, and just filter feed until they get to a certain size. And once they get to a certain size, they metamorph into a miniature adult, and then they travel back out into the lakes, find fish, parasitize them, grow into reproductive age, and go and reproduce again. Now this one right here, this is a freshwater native species called the northern brook lamprey. It's actually an endangered species in Indiana. It's non-parasitic. And so how does that work? The non-parasitic lifestyle of a lamprey basically means that you're going to spend most of your life as a larva. And so they can spend years in the sediment of a stream, for example, and just filter feed. And when they metamorph, when they get to a certain size and they metamorph into adults, the adults simply breed, and then they die. They don't live very long. The adults don't. And so the adult stage is a breeding stage only, and they will breed, produce new embryos. The embryos develop into larvae, and then the larvae spend, again, years as larvae, and then eventually become adults and reproduce. Kind of like cicadas do, right? Like the cicadas, they spend all their life underground, come up, breed as adults. The adults really can't feed on anything. They simply are reproduction vesicles. So they can spend up to 7 years, at least the northern brook lamprey can spend up to 7 years as a larva. All right, so that's lampreys. There's some nice videos of lampreys out there. There are marine lampreys in the UK and whatnot. So